Good morning, everyone. I'm just opening up the session so that we can get our participants out of the waiting room and into the live session in time. So I can see everyone is joining now, so that is brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. Just give it a second more. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to make us start with the live session now. So welcome to our webinar this morning. Today, talking about moving your workplace from clean to hygiene. It's presented by EcoProd in conjunction with our partners from Cosy Flow today. So just before I get into the kind of core of the presentation, a few housekeeping points. We are recording the session today so that we will have be able to send you a link later this afternoon with a link to watch the recording back, but also to get a copy of the slides. So all of the materials and links and so on that are being presented today will be with you this afternoon, and you can watch that session back and share it with colleagues, at your leisure. You'll notice as you join that your lines are muted, so whilst you can hear us, we can't hear you, but we would like you to ask questions, please, as we go through the session. You'll notice that there's a Q&A function on the control panel at the bottom of your screen. Please use that to submit questions as we go through the session. The content today is sort of 35-ish, 40 minutes. We might answer some questions in the background via text, but we will leave some time at the end to ask questions of our presenters live at the end as well. So our agenda, so the core of what we're talking about really is understanding the difference between clean and hygiene. And we're going to go through and talk about ATP testing, what that is, how it works, how it gives you data and how you can use that information in your regimes. And then we're going to talk about the practicalities of moving from a clean to a hygiene process whilst limiting environmental impact and so on. And then, as I said, there's time at the end for some live questions as well. So introductions. My name's Rachel. I'm on the business development team here at EcoProd. I've got two colleagues on the line with me today who are going to introduce themselves. I've got Richard Merrills from Cosy Flow, who is doing the core of our presentation today, but I'll start with Marcus, our MD at EcoProd. Marcus, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, many thanks, Rachel. And I'd just like to welcome everyone on this webinar. Thank them for joining us. We do hope you find this session informative and of value. And before I introduce Richard Merrills, I thought it would be good just to give the audience some background about EcoProd. We specialise in water and energy saving solutions for commercial washrooms, which was a vision I had as the founder back in the spring of 2006 when we had the first spring drought. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade and training and have 30+ years experience within the industry. At EcoProd, we take a consultative approach to sales, whereby we engage with our clients and prospects to understand their wants and needs and deliver a return on investment proposition based on savings, reduced maintenance and longevity of product. We actually represent a number of global manufacturers here in the UK that have USP product features not seen in other brands within the industry. This particular partnership we are presenting today involves the Contrin Plus oxen disinfectant solutions, which have been in development for a few years and were launched approximately a year ago. Initially, the desire was for a drinking water solution to kill waterborne bacteria like Legionella and Pseudomonas, but the testing proved the same efficacy results in hands, surfaces, air, and filtration, all with environmentally safe credentials. I guess one thing that recent events have taught us is that we have an obligation as building operators to provide safe working environments to staff, visitors, and all stakeholders as a duty of care. You're now going to see a presentation and get some vision and understanding of the clean to hygiene concept that we deliver. And I'd now like to introduce Richard Merrills. Richard, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Marcus. And thank you to everyone joining the call today. I know there's a number of you, and it's great to know so many people are considering the value of this subject also. It's certainly a hot topic with our current client base. And as mentioned, I am the Managing Director of Cosy. Earlier on, we mentioned today I'll be talking about measuring hygiene levels, and in particular, adenosine triphosphate, the testing technique, the data generated by this testing technique, and the associated benefits. We'll also talk about the wider landscape and how to leverage those benefits internally and externally to your business. And finally, we'll look at some of the current hygiene solutions for the workplace and how they also answer another important exam question the world faces. But before that, I'll give you a little bit of background and context on Cosy. Cosy's built on many years of experience across a combination of industrial cleaning and consulting business dating back to 1955. Cosy is a family business with its DNA deriving from another family business started by my grandfather in industrial cleaning. In 1955, my grandfather realised that taking hazardous waste to landfill and subsequently dumping the waste and its container in the ground was potentially not the way forward. Reg Merrills realised there was great value in reconditioning the steel drum to be used over and over again, while processing any associated hazardous waste safely and securely. Building on that experience, AM Industrial was created as a consulting business, leveraging knowledge and expertise in specialist waste management. AM Industrial developed into a more specialist areas of management consulting also, providing consulting to major transformational change initiatives in both private and public sectors. One of the most recent assignments was working closely with the NHS during the outbreak of COVID-19. A particular experience was understanding the concerns of frontline staff remaining operational in a high-risk environment. The particular area AMI was involved in was across the 11 ambulance trusts. This was a key driver for establishing Palm Hygiene and Cosy to start the transformation from clean to hygiene while minimising environmental impact. Cosy is part of a small but growing group of companies built to support each other and deliver a wide range of integrated services through internal knowledge, skills and capabilities and external strategic partnerships. We've built a framework designed to scale on short notice. So the reason we're here today, the difference between clean and hygiene is potentially one of the most important aspects of Cosy and some historic events also, as highlighted by Marcus there earlier. First, though, key to making any change is to agree a common language, allowing us all to talk effectively on the subject. And as you'll see, by introducing data, we can deliver greater effectiveness and benefits to our stakeholders. Now, of course, there's always semantics, personal interpretation and subjectivity challenges. However, Cosy has established what it believes are the best definitions to deliver our vision, one of which is taken from the World Health Organization. There may be crossover between the two, and that will always remain the case. But to achieve our goal as a business and for our client, it's important that we agree on the desired outcome of the service we are providing. Clean is for Cosy, free of dirt, and almost the preparation for our hygiene provision. Hygiene, more specifically, prevents the spread of disease. And this is not about COVID, it's about all threats. It's about that bit of food poisoning you got from the workplace fridge, or that mystery illness that put you in bed for 3 days after visiting a client's site. It's about hygiene entirely. So with that common language in place, I'd actually like to start with a few questions for all of you. Based on the definitions we've got on the screen here for clean and hygiene, I just want you to consider the questions in the following slides. More than happy for you to answer them, but just for your consideration. I do have the answers, by the way, which I'll share with you at the end. So these are real situations, just based on those definitions, which you believe is more hygienic. Now, specifically, it's the toilet seat we're looking at here and the laptop in general. So the keyboard, the trackpad, which do you believe is more hygienic based on those definitions? Then we have a sink tap, a canteen tap, as it were, or a car, an individual's car. before the treatment you see taking place in the picture there, so before we fog the vehicle. So which do you believe is more hygienic? And then finally, a piece of gym equipment, a barbell, a dumbbell, or the remote control from the gym. So this is in a functioning gym. Which item do you believe is more hygienic based on those definitions? Okay, and I'll give you the answers at the end. Now, of course, apologies. Apologies, we've lost the page here. I'll have to jump forward. Apologies. I'll have to jump forward. So, apologies for that. So ATP. So what is ATP? Sorry, minor technical issue. What is ATP? So adenosine triphosphate, as it's known, is present in every living thing, or every known form of life, to be more specific. It's present in everything from single cells up to all the way through to complex living things such as human beings, and therefore human beings can transfer ATP almost anywhere they go. ATP is a witness to life, as it were. So in the picture here we see what could be deemed as good ATP and maybe what could be deemed as bad ATP. For example, if one of the humans in the picture were to touch the cheese you see there in the right-hand side of the picture and pick up the green apple you see on the left-hand side, they can easily transfer some of the ATP, the adenosine triphosphate, and the associated bacteria from that cheese to the green apple, ultimately accelerating it to looking more like the apple just to the right there, as you see. So what is ATP testing? As I mentioned previously, ATP testing is not necessarily a new thing. In fact, it's been possible since the 1980s. What is exciting about it, though, is the speed at which the results are now available and the associated technology platforms that go with it. ATP testing focuses on the bioluminescent qualities of living microorganisms and luminometer technology to count the number of organisms collected from each swab, as you can see Noel here in the picture taking. The technology is very quick to return results. Each swab takes only 10 seconds and is immediately stored in the cloud, ready for analysis and presentation. The technology works by activating the bioluminescent qualities of the microorganisms. To oversimplify, it's similar to making fireflies light up in the dark and then taking a picture of them to count how many there are. The unit of measure is relative light units, and this is the count of ATP instances provided in the swab. Each swab collects its sample, and then a carrier fluid holds the microorganisms for accounting. This tech has been a great source of discussion and competition at Cosy, and it's always an exciting moment when we complete the treatment to see how we did. But fun aside, this element of competition is actually at the heart of implementing hygiene, as it is a way of monitoring and managing hygiene levels across your facility, fleet, or wider portfolio. And I'll talk a little bit about that wider view later on. So once we've completed our tests, as you saw in there in the previous picture, both prior to and after the treatment, we have a data set from which we can create action, make changes and monitor and manage overall hygiene while addressing hotspots and anomalies. Illustrated here is a data journey from the site test results to long-term hygiene management. The test results are gathered from the site in real time, whether that be one or many, and a raw data set is created. As you can see in the first image, the data itself can build into a significant data set and can easily become unmanageable, although it's possible to spot anomalies in quite a large data set. At the bottom of the data set, you'll see 4 highlighted values. These were anomalous values and were well outside the established theme across the data. If you then look at the second image, where we start to present the data you'll see that it will show the spike showing itself clearly. Spike is caused by the 400 squares in the raw data. The test point was consistently high and therefore drove action over a period of time to try and reduce these scores. At this point, for us, it's also become clear that there is a wider picture to consider than just our direct response on the elevated scores and what we can do on the day. As a starting point here, the location in question was actually a tap used by many people, potentially touched thousands of times a day. But to Marcus's point earlier, there is a simple solution to this to address the root cause, contact. And this is part of that wider integrated hygiene solution possible. In the third image, as the data builds over weeks and months, we start to see trends and themes emerging. In this image, you can see our first treatment of the site, baseline hygiene level appearing, and the aspirational hygiene target identified. So as you can see there in the third image, step 1 as labeled, this is our first treatment. The blue line coming down starts with a high value and reduces after treatment by approximately 88%. This is what we call the exit score. That's the score after treatment. Step 2, the subsequent treatments, as you can see, a sort of a group of colourful lines just towards the bottom of the graph there. They achieve similar ATP scores post-treatment, but this time the entry score is lower due to the regular disinfection now taking place. Step 3 is then to recalibrate existing cleaning regimes to further reduce the entry number, flattening the curve, as it were, and achieving a new baseline hygiene level. Step 3 is also where we look at the wider picture and start to consider dependent and contributing factors to the new hygiene targets. And this is what we consider to be of great importance going forward. It's certainly Cosy's belief that facilities users and the general public as a whole will now take great interest in verified hygiene as opposed to subjective claims of safety. It is worth noting, though, all of the analysis you see here, the data, the production of the charts, etc., and management of the data is completed by us. It's completed by Cosy. And this is provided to our clients in the form of a management information report, depending on their requirement. So as a business, now with your data and MI reporting being provided, this is the more exciting benefit of the data and technology that's now available. Due to our testing equipment being connected to a cloud management system, business of any scale can benefit from the digestible management reporting. Our reports will allow from single site to an operation of hundreds to monitor hygiene levels based on the data. A standardized approach to testing will allow large multi-site operators to glean additional benefits also. Seeing performance across a portfolio may help managers understand which cleaning or hygiene products are working and those that are not, which signs are performing better than others, and enable objective dialogue as to why. Now, although large-scale data is highly beneficial, it can also help identify trends at a local level as well. As demonstrated in the previous chart, a clear issue was identified in the data and action was taken, including an analysis of the root cause. A good example of local trends could be a hotel operator, or maybe a large complex facility like a motorway service or shopping centre, which can have complex and long cleaning regimes. By using ATP testing, a theme may emerge from certain areas of the building without explanation. With an assured testing regime, it can be possible to identify the root cause for hygiene issues rapidly. For example, a certain floor of a hotel or area of a large facility may consistently experience high ATP scores and therefore poor hygiene. The trend may be due to a number of reasons, such as the area in question may be being cleaned at the end of a shift when a team are tired and struggling, maybe struggling to maintain effort levels late at night potentially. It may be that the work is taking place late at night and just not being addressed. Could be poor habits, poor behaviours, bad habits have just embedded, although the regime may be there, maybe the due diligence, the governance around that is not having its effect. Or third-party scope and expectations may not have been set appropriately, or again, are not being governed. So there could be many reasons for this, for the emergence of elevated ATP scores, all of which can be provided to facilities managers, third parties, team leaders, or the executive in the appropriate format to help drive change when necessary for operational change to activities, or all the way up to strategic change, which we'll cover now. But first, I do have another question for you. So again, just to consider before the end, where else does anyone know that ozone technology is currently in use 24 hours a day? It's certainly been my experience that not many people are aware of its uses or where its technology is in use. But just a quick question, if anyone's got any thoughts as to where else it could be in use. I'll give you the answer at the end as well. So what we see here on the screen is a simple journey from where we are to where we want to be. And this is the journey from clean to hygiene. So we're moving from clean, we're moving towards a hygienic environment. So as demonstrated, we can now measure, monitor and manage our hygiene levels based on what the ATP testing gives us, a data set and therefore a single and objective source of the truth. From that, we can now look at the wider picture and look at further improvements to enhance our hygiene or create efficiencies and improve our user experience. Now, this could be financial savings, increased uptake in hygiene practices, reduced environmental impact and associated reputation gain, or employee confidence overall, amongst others. Therefore, with our data in hand, we now ask ourselves, what products are in use? Are they appropriate? Are they effective? Do they satisfy our environmental ethos? What are the people responsible for, and are they delivering it? However, are the people enabled with a process to provide a hygienic environment? Are the people and the process supported by any required tools to provide a hygienic environment? And is the information available to inform and educate where needed to provide a hygienic environment? As they say, you cannot ask people to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. They must first be enabled. So this illustration covers our internal transition to hygiene, but what about our suppliers? If we have third-party cleaning services or contractors or on-site shared services. Now I have moved to the next slide. It's the same. As at this point in time, we're now acting on one single source of the truth, an objective set for both parties. Having an objective set of data now allows for a shared goal with your cleaning company. Are they using the right products? Are there people engaged in what it is you're trying to achieve? Are they enabled? This is not to say you will find any nasty surprises, but the data provided provides visibility and a platform for that objective dialogue. Now that is why the two slides are the same. Our objectives should be aligned with our hygiene objectives should be aligned with that of our suppliers. Now I'd like to talk about the other exam question I mentioned earlier. There are certainly two big exam questions in the world at the moment, and I fully appreciate there may be many more. But for Cosy, they are health and hygiene and the environment. Now, the statement you see here, David Attenborough's statement, has resonated with me since I heard it. And I believe, and certainly Cosy believe, we can make a contribution to this objective. There certainly are some very large-scale projects to rewild the world, such as the American Prairie Reserve that is physically rewilding swathes of America. But I'm no ex-Wall Street banker, but I do know the efforts like the American Prairie Reserves are still real and they are still on this planet. And what I mean by that is the rivers that run through those reserves, the air that blows across them needs to be free of contamination and pollution for the projects to really succeed. I believe all business can contribute by addressing the problem at source, cutting the release of contaminants to the water system through chemicals or harmful gases to the air. Fortunately, there are products and techniques that will allow us to do this. So here we have two products. As recognised by the WHO, ozone is the most effective and efficient disinfectant against all microorganisms. And at the same time, it has zero environmental impact. Ozone is a form of oxygen and is created connecting one extra molecule within the air we breathe to take O2 to O3. Ozone is an unstable gas and it instantly destroys bacteria and pathogens, penetrating carpets, soft furnishings, and all exposed surfaces. Ozone cannot be stored due to its unstable nature and therefore must be generated on site for each treatment. Ozone can either be left to naturally deconstruct back to pure oxygen, or it can be destructed, enabling immediate access to the treated rooms. But in conjunction with ozone and complementing its environmental credentials is Conti Plus Oxan. I and Cosy consider these to be what we call future state products, supporting the objective on the previous slide. We believe that the products should now be used, these products should now be used as much as possible for the foreseeable future, eradicating chemical use where possible. Conti Plus Oxan is made using only salt and water and remains that way, all the way back to the water table. When Conti Plus Oxan and ozone are combined, dramatic results are achieved and quantified by our ATP testing. We're currently using Conti Plus Oxan on construction sites, fleet vehicles, freight, and personally owned cars, and many other settings. We're also looking to establish roadside services using Oxan for what we're calling pit stop hygiene. So now I can show you some of the real world applications of these. So what about the real world? Well, what I've certainly learned over the past 8 months is people need to see this service to connect with it. The only problem is there's nothing to see with ozone. As an aside, I was told a story by a chap who tried ozone services before, and he told me the biggest problem he had was client perception. He was not using testing equipment at the time. However, when he provided the ozone services, the clients would typically say, "Where is it? What's it doing?" Or he would feel disgruntled looks as he sat outside the building, just allowing the ozone to do its work. Problem was he felt was that people simply thought it wasn't doing anything. So being the ever salesman, he decided to make a change. For a small office block with a 3-story atrium in front of it, decided to make sure people knew that something was going on. He set his ozone machines up to do their invisible work, as it were. But at the same time, for a lot more show, he placed a smoke machine at the top of the stairs. So anyone looking in would see a nice thing filling with mist, filling the space with mist, appealing to their need for something visible. But needless to say, he was never challenged again. A satisfying cloud of smoke, it appeared to be all that was needed. But obviously we don't need smoke. Cosy doesn't need smoke because we're using data for our clients to see. So what you see here is our compact ozone machines, ozone generators. Now we use these when we essentially fill a building or fill a room with ozone and let it naturally destruct, which actually increases the treatment time and increases the effectiveness even further. You also see the automated machines here. What they are for is to provide the same process, fill rooms and buildings with ozone, but then what we call destruct. They essentially take that ozone back out and just return pure oxygen to the room so you can get back in your office, your site office, or wherever it may be immediately after the treatment has happened. You also see a picture of one of our tamper seals here. We put these on every door, every vehicle that we treat, just to provide a bit of assurance and let people know which rooms have been treated, and that comes with some benefits as well for the cleaning teams on sites during the week, knowing which rooms they don't need to go into, tamper seals demonstrating which rooms have been used. You also see some of the testing again taking place on high touch areas such as printers and telephones. Obviously we test numerous other spaces. We also do some random testing as well to kind of verify our efficacy. So combined with another future product, Conti Plus Oxan, there is that other way we can support that objective to rewild the world. It may be slightly indirect, but I believe it certainly contributes. So as mentioned, Conti Plus Oxan is made with only salt and water. It's for this reason it perfectly fits with us, essentially allowing us to disinfect using only air and water. Now in these pictures you see here, the key to take from this slide is contact time. All disinfectants require contact time. I can't stress this enough. Bacteria and pathogens live. They are alive, and it's our job to kill them, unfortunately, for them. But I guess this is before they get us. So what you see here is Conti Plus Oxan Clean, which is for surface disinfection and hand sanitizer. So if you came on site, you would see Cosy team members sanitizing their hands and skin in general with Conti Plus Oxan before, during, and after the surface, whilst also actually providing the treatment to the surfaces with it as well. So when treating vehicles, we always finish the cars, trucks or vans with Oxan Clean as well, Conti Plus Oxan Clean as well, on the door handles when we leave the vehicle, allowing for significant contact time in a detailed part of the car. So following on from vehicles, here's another application. This is actually Conti Plus Oxan Fresh in another application. So in terms of vehicles, it's ideal for fleet and roadside, corporate fleets. We're actually about to implement a regular vehicle hygiene service for a large-scale operation who want to extend hygiene to their employees, providing that extra layer of protection and assurance for their employees. A solution we also envisage is potentially in UK service stations, again, transitioning from clean to hygiene. Of course, the traditional car clean will always have its place, but pit stop hygiene for the likes of trucks, taxis, public transport, and emergency vehicles may well become the norm. And in this picture here, it's worth noting that it is a dry fog. You don't end up with a kind of wet interior to your car. Once you open the door, the treatment is finished, you open the door, it essentially returns to a dry condition. And finally, another and probably my most favourite use case for Conti Plus Oxan Fresh is the Cosy Gateway. It's a personal hygiene unit, allowing for, again, pit stop and high volume hygiene. The unit allows users to pass through, having had their temperature taken, to activate the unit. When the user steps in, they're gently misted with Oxan Fresh, again, helping maintain a hygienic environment. And that's by attacking the microorganisms on people's clothing, their skin, their hair, if they've been on the tube, train, public transport, or just from home, their car, wherever it may be. Again, it's about suppressing that curve, as it were, we saw in the data earlier. And again, I draw you back to the view of Oxan being a future state product. You can see here that this application for this unit has got significant potential and is dynamic for each site. So finally, just a quick summary of our services. Albeit they are available, we do provide them as standalone. We provide a shock treatment, all the way from a shock treatment for concerned facilities managers. We've certainly provided that service for facilities managers who have been concerned about COVID in their building. We provide services to residential properties for end of tenancy, pre and post sale disinfection. We have Cosy Auto, as you have seen it there in the pictures, the fogging service. We also use ozone technology on vehicles as well. We have the Cosy Gateway, as you've just seen there. And we have our commercial service, which is a much more integrated service, taking conventional cleaning and the hygiene service together to get the most effectiveness of an integrated model. But ultimately, these can also be integrated together for clients, which we are doing as well. Almost a catalogue choice, as it were, of how far you want to take your hygiene approach. And finally, what's next for us? So ultimately, we're moving towards, due to demand, we're moving towards a franchise model to offer in other areas of the UK. And no doubt we'll be providing updates to you on that. We're stretching out into other facilities disciplines. And that's due to demand again, because we found ourselves assessing hygiene levels and hygiene processes and approaches on site, but finding ourselves looking at the kind of interrelationships and the dependencies with other activities on site as well, for example, in the water space. And also we already have our continuous improvement roadmap in place. And that's particularly in the product space at the moment. We're in talks with suppliers of much larger scale ozone generators, so we can apply our process to much larger facilities, such as large shops or production units. And finally, I'll just give you the answers quickly before we move on, and I hand back to EcoProd. So the answers to those questions earlier on, some of you may know the answers already, but some of them may be surprising to you. But yes, the toilet seat was more hygienic than the laptop. The remote control in the gym, certainly less hygienic than the equipment in use. And then in the canteen, the tap certainly scored a pretty terrific score there. The higher the score, the higher the ATP at the end of the day. Ultimately, the higher the risk of transmission of disease. Now, what we saw in all of these areas was where the score was lower, it was mainly because there was an established process, procedure, and an approach to hygiene. So, for example, in the toilet, there was a robust cleaning regime using appropriate products. Therefore, the toilet certainly came off better than the laptop. The laptop was not subject to any cleaning regime or hygiene regime. It was used by an individual and became essentially a high touch point for all other areas from the building. And the story is similar across all those settings. Touch points can be missed by the cleaning regime in place. And in answer to where ozone technology is also in use, it's on the airline. So every airline you travel on, every jetliner, every pressurized aircraft you fly on, ozone technology is used to remove the ozone from the air you breathe on the aircraft. At that altitude, ozone is in much higher quantities. And it essentially does what our machines do to return your rooms back to a usable state immediately. So every engine that gives you oxygen on an aircraft has essentially the same technology removing the ozone for you to provide a safe environment when you're in the air. So thanks very much for that. I'll now hand back to EcoProd.
Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, you will get these slides and a copy of the recording. And there are some links on this slide for some extra information about both Cosy, but also the Green Washroom Guide that we talked about up at the beginning. I do have some questions for both of you. Firstly, about ATP, how dangerous is ATP? And isn't it the case that small amounts of bacteria are actually good for you?
Yes, sorry, Marcus, sorry, I meant to say I can take that. Yes, ATP itself is not a harmful element. It's essentially it demonstrates as mentioned there, the presence of the associated bacteria. The bacteria is the harmful element of it, as it were. And yes, I fully understand the view that a bit of bacteria is good for you. We are certainly exposed to it, and we have our own bacteria as human beings, and there's a healthy element of bacteria. But what this is about reducing the risk for facilities. So keeping those numbers down. I've certainly been asked over time, whilst mobilizing this, that it's been stated that I'm sterilizing, or there's been a perception that I'm sterilizing the office or I'm sterilizing the desk. That is not a measure we would ever get to, and that's not what we're looking to do. Sterilization is a whole different approach, as it were, and it has its appropriate applications. But what we're achieving here is reducing the level of ATP, and therefore you're reducing the risk of contamination of those common illnesses, whether that's food poisoning. COVID is now one of them. It is inside that group of communicable diseases. Seasonal illnesses, as I say, food poisoning, or just mystery illnesses that can put people off work. What we're providing is visibility of the risk and a solution to mitigate that risk, to lower those numbers.
Okay.
It's about minimising transfer, isn't it, Richard?
Yes. So there's, as you saw, I think probably the best example there is within the pictures is for example the tap or the laptop. The tap in question there is like I say, a canteen tap, and there's potentially thousands of people touching that tap, but without knowing, that's only just become visible through ATP testing. So now that the facility is aware of that is now addressed accordingly, and scores have now tapered off. They were not aware of that risk previously. How we plot that to potential days of sickness is something we could develop, but yes.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of questions about the oxan disinfectant. So firstly, how does oxan fresh kill germs or bacteria?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So the whole oxan structure is hypochlorite, and it's the process in which the electrolysis through the manufacture of the product is operated that kills all the viral bacteria that it's been tested on. The person asking that question wants to go to the EcoProd website and go to the Oxan section and download the documents, they'll get a much better understanding of the process and how the product works.
Okay, I can send some links out to the person who asked that. That's fine. There's an associated question that goes with that about are they effective against biofilm, and some very specific regulation passing, EN 17126, EN 16777.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes.
And biofilm?
Yes, definitely biofilm. Biofilm, the production of biofilm is the reason why Legionella and Pseudomonas start to exist, and Oxan has proved to kill all forms of biofilm.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Can my existing contract cleaners do this for me?
Over to you, Richard. It depends what the contract cleaning contract consists of.
Yes, I guess there's probably a number of other questions to satisfy around that. How Cosy is working with existing cleaning contractors is that the value of the testing ultimately is what's being leveraged. So we provide a level. We provide objectivity to allow the end client, the facility, whichever business that may be, that has a third party providing cleaning, to create an element of accountability. So for them to essentially manage that third party more effectively, there's not a reason saying they can't do it. No, but it would require them a fair bit of reconfiguring for them to provide this as a specialist service. But like I say, the way we're working at the moment is that we are another objective third party, as it were, working in tandem and supporting and helping. For example, we are helping clients reconfigure their cleaning regime. Like I say, that assessment of people, product, process, tools, information, so that their cleaning regime the existing third-party cleaning regime can meet expectation, as it were. And if additional hygiene is required, we're providing that if and when.
Okay, thank you. Could you talk a little bit more about the gateway, and specifically, do you offer trials of that gateway?
Sorry, Marcus, did you want that?
Yes, we do offer trials of the gateway. What specifically is the question that they need to know regarding what the product is? So basically, it's a walkthrough like anyone would experience going through a security zone at an airport. It takes your temperature at the beginning, which is monitored. And as Richard said in his presentation, you are sprayed with Conti Oxan Fresh, which actually flashes off very quickly. Just to pick up on the point that Richard made, it's not a sterilization process. It's another level of hygiene security that all your stakeholders that are involved in who you're operating within have the security that you've actually got a duty of care that you're delivering. We can follow up with some more specific details following this webinar for the person that particularly asked that question. It's what the specifics are that's behind the question is what we would need to know.
Yeah, okay. But trials would be available if there were specific circumstances.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I think I have reached the end of the questions that have come through. I haven't seen any more pop up. So with that, then I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody who attended. You will get an email later today with all of these materials. Thank you very much, Marcus and Richard, for your presentation today. And we hope that you join us on another session sometime soon. Thank you very much.